Soundwaves KPFK, the soundtrack of the World Wide Web, with your host, the Deacon of Speakin on the weekend, the chicken nugget champion, Mr. Abraham Beltran. And right in front of me, live and direct in studio, Mr. Aloe Blacc.
Yes, yes.
How are you, sir?
I'm good.
Thank you for doing this, first and foremost.
That's no problem.
I am happy you put it together and whatnot, and all the pleasantries. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
So we're kind of gonna take it back to the beginning, rewind the record all the way, and kind of get into your childhood, and then kind of get into when you first got the bug to create music, your first works, what you've done recently, and kind of where you're headed and where you see the musical marketplace headed. So
Right.
that's cool with you if we hop in the spaceship and go
Sure,
down that path.
That's fine. Let's do it.
All right. So what are some of your first musical memories, man, as a kid?
Well, first musical memories, I think, would be from television. And aside from the obvious, TV shows that are about music, like The Partridge Family or the Jackson 5 cartoon, I think it would be, the really good intro songs to TV shows, like Different Strokes and What's Happening and Good Times. When I thought about it too recently, because somebody asked me that question, my earliest musical memories, and I said something like Thriller, the video, when the music video came out, because I actually saw it on the premiere. I was scared to death. I was a little kid, but then I thought, no, earlier than that, it would probably be something like Good Times or one of those TV shows with really, really memorable song at the beginning.
You were kind of hearing it was instant good feeling. You were just...
Yeah, instant good feeling because you're about to laugh. You're with your family when you watch the shows. You probably just had a nice meal. You just ate. So, I mean, those songs are all wrapped around really good, warm memories.
I've never heard anyone say that. You never really think about it, though.
Oh, but that's when music, on TV shows, they really took it seriously. One of my favorite joints is the intro to Alice. That song, Early to Bed, Early to Rise. There's a new girl in town. That joint is ridiculous. Just the way they put the whole song together.
Company, come on a rendezvous. Yeah. They don't make really good songs for TV shows anymore, except for How to Make It in America.
Which is, I'm telling you, man, that is, I'm not even because I'm sitting here in front of you, like the dopest intro. I mean, HBO always comes correct, period, but we'll get to that. But I love that intro, man. I just want to get like on my hustle when I watch that. And then 30 minutes later, I'm back to eating. So when I tend to think that what people are listening to kind of in their junior high years, it's usually kind of shapes their musical taste. It kind of is the catalyst to a music head becoming a music head.
Right.
What were you listening to in those junior high school years?
That's funny. I consider junior high school years to be some of the funnest times of my life. And during that time, I was all about, hip-hop and R&B and whatever was on the radio that was hip-hop and R&B. So, of course, we're talking Jodeci and what else? Tribe Called Quest. This is when good hip-hop could make it to the radio. What else?
De La Soul.
Yeah, De La Soul. I mean, all the really good classic hip-hop that you could think of in the 90s, early 90s, but New Jack Swing. You know what I'm saying? I was, Rex and Effect was all about that. OPP.
Well, no, who I'm curious
because nature.
I always think the method to which you're introduced to this music plays a big role in how you absorb it. Was it like an older brother or a cousin or an uncle who was showing you this music?
I didn't have an older brother, but I had a good introduction to hip hop from neighbors, guys in my neighborhood who helped me. My next door neighbor introduced me to K-Day when I was probably 9 years old. And this is in Orange County where we didn't have access to K-Day, really. I had to go in my mom's car and turn on the radio to hear the station because it was all the way in L.A. Because I couldn't get it inside the house. And I would get a chance to hear, some really good hip-hop because regular stations weren't necessarily playing NWA or Biz Markie, which I remember, I remember those kind of tracks vividly. LL Cool J. I remember that stuff on K-Day back in the day. And then this is so mid to late 80s. And then in the 90s, there was another neighbor of mine who moved from Los Angeles to Orange County and just introduced me to a lot more hip hop and a lot of other concepts and like dance and it was kind of my crew at that point. I was like the young guy in the group, and these older guys were kind of showing me and letting me borrow their cassettes and stealing my cassettes when I bought new stuff,
Well, it must have just been like information overload for you, like to be, because you're in Orange County and you're not kind of immersed in.
Nah, I wasn't immersed in the culture immediately. It was we had to seek the culture and we had to bring it in and kind of digest it in the environment that we were in. But I was lucky enough to get some cats straight out of LA that moved, that could easily be a conduit to the real essence.
When did the bug kind of bite you in terms of, hey, I might want to do this myself, or I might want to dabble with singing or rhyming? And actually, which came first?
Well, rhyming came first. My older sister, Indira, is the singer of the family, and that was hands down. And I was the dancer of the family, and then I became the rapper because I just enjoyed writing raps. I mean, I remember back when I was like really young, we were watching Beat Street, and my dad, he was talking about, I don't know what you guys think about this rap music. I don't know what you see in it, why you think it's so special. He said, I'm the rapper and you're the rappee, so shut up your mouth and listen to me. And I must have, just based on where I was living at the time, I think I might have been 6 or fewer years old. And then later, when we moved out of like military housing, because my dad was a Marine, we moved out of base housing to our own home. I started writing my own lyrics. So at about age 9, my earliest rhyme book I still have, started writing rhymes. And my dad bought a cassette for me, 2 cassettes he bought because I was supposed to perform a Michael Jackson dance to in a play.
This is like what age?
It's around 9 or 10, and I was supposed to perform to Bad, Michael Jackson on Bad. So he went to the music store and he bought 2 cassettes. He bought I'm Bad and he bought Bigger and Deffer, Bad, and so he didn't know which one to get, and I benefited from both of them because I ended up memorizing the whole LL Cool J album and just copying some of his styles on my rhymes and just learning from it. And definitely at age 9, that's not a record you want to play for a 9-year-old, but
That's cool. You can have the censorship.
Did you kind of grow up in a musical household in terms of where your parents were listening to music and whatnot?
Well, of course, my parents were always playing music. My dad had a stereo system that said, if you value your life, keep your hands off of my stereo. So it was one of those things where, like, he was the master of the music, but we had our own cassettes and cassette recorders and that kind of thing. He bought my sister and I like a little karaoke machine, and we'd record our own versions of songs. And we'd listen to, he had R&B and soul music of the day and classic stuff, but then also salsa music and calypso, and reggae, stuff that he listened to when he was growing up. Old soul, Spanish soul music from Panama, old groups like the Exciters and the Beachers,
So you had a extremely varied taste. I mean, kind of in terms of what was being exposed to you at a young age.
Yeah, and then growing up in Orange County and being like one of 2 black kids in the neighborhood, then all of my friends at school, their parents were listening to classic rock. So when I'd go to their houses, I'd check those catalogs of music. And when I started making beats and getting into trying to make little pause loops on cassette recorder, we'd be grabbing Steely Dan records, Eagle records, Chicago, and I started a whole different education.
I threw my hands up because you're the second person to mention Steely Dan.
Mm-hmm.
I love Steely Dan.
Yeah,
You love Steely Dan?
I like Steely Dan
Favorite
a lot.
Steely Dan album? Mine's Asia.
I don't know if there's a favorite. I just like songs, specific songs, but Asia's a great album. So I'll go with that.
That's funny you mention that. Anytime someone mentions Steely Dan, my hands go in there.
Yeah.
So what you said you were doing these pause tapes and you were taking rock music and soul music. What at what age did you kind of start making beats and doing these pause tapes?
I started that probably in 14. At about 14.
What were your weapons of choice at the time? What did you have readily?
Just a dual cassette recorder. Dual cassette recorder. You record part of a loop on one, then you record it on the other tape, and you go back and forth and just keep making a loop on the dual cassette recorder.
And then you would rhyme on top.
And then the dual cassette recorder had a little microphone built in, and so then you rhyme on top. So of course it ends up sounding like the worst quality you could imagine, but it's a start. It builds the mental toolery to be able to know how music is made and basically the physics of sound, the physics of music, and understanding the cassettes. And of course your cassettes get messed up. You got to open them up, re-spool the tape, put some tape on it, fix it however you do, close it back up. You can't do that with an MP3 now. So you learn a lot. I learned a lot from making music and being that intimate with the machinery back then.
Now you had a friend in Orange County who lived in Los Angeles and kind of brought the culture to you. Mm-hmm. Now, did I get this right? You went to school in LA, right? University.
I ended up, coming to Los Angeles for university at USC. And during those years, I was really just strictly about school. I think I released maybe one record during college years with Exile. But I was just strictly about school, just focusing on academia, because really music had always been a hobby, always been the side thing. I wasn't too much into sports. I wasn't into video games or getting drunk or high or anything. So music was, my recreation, my pastime.
But at what point were you like, okay, I'm going to actually put out a record or lay something down?
That we started in high school. In 95, Exile and I met Exile through a friend of mine named Anthony Johnson. He was, Exile was a graffiti writer in a crew, and all of his boys were going to high school with me. Exile was from a different high school. And Exile was working on a mixtape, and he was asking his boys, do you know any MCs? So Anthony said, yo, I could rap, but not as good as Aloe. So you should use him on your mixtape. And that's when Exile and I connected in 95. We made a mixtape called Stretch Marks, and then another mixtape after that called Imaginary Friends. And these mixtapes ended up making it around the world. By the time I got to college, I was getting emails from Finland and Australia, all over the place, about this mixtape. We were recording on a 4-track recorder. It was like a Gemini mixer sampler as a loop machine, and then we graduated to the Roland MS-30, and then we graduated from there to the MPC. Exile got an MPC, but I was still messing around with the 4-track and like the MS-30 when he graduated to the MPC. So a friend of ours, actually we would send our music to the local college radio station, and I would drive during school nights to go to KUCI at University of California.
Well, from Laguna Hills to Irvine, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes, but on a school night. And I was doing good in school. My parents didn't really care if I was out late, so I would be able to go and play my music or freestyle on the radio station and like be around other cats that I really looked up to, like the Beat Junkies. Babu and Rhythmatic, J-Rock would always be at the radio station DJing. But then we got to play our music, and a fan called the radio station one day and was like, I want to donate basically $1,000 to put out Eminem's first record, 12-inch.
What?
So a fan worked for however long he needed to work at a minimum wage job and just gave us money.
Oh, not like a regular financier.
Nah, just a regular kid. You know,
really
regular high school kid.
What I need.